Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Teach Me to Code podcast. I did it again. All right. Well, anyway, this week I'm going to be talking about knowing your text editor. I'm specifically going to go into some of the things that I'm learning about Vim. If you're not a Vim person, stay with me anyway, because I'm going to be talking about some of the other stuff that's out there that that applies, I think, to you regardless of what tool you're using to write your code. So anyway, let's just jump in real quick. First off, I want to acknowledge our sponsor. We have NewRelic.com. They are a terrific tool for looking at what's going on in your app and just figuring out what's going right, what's going wrong. It just gives you all kinds of information. I've actually had to dig in a little bit with New Relic this last week since my client wants me to optimize some of the performance on their website. So it's a great tool for that. It really does help you break down where the requests are, where it's spending the time, and then you can figure out, okay, I need to cut out these database queries through some eager loading, or I need to figure out how to make this code run faster, or whatever it is. And it's really made a huge difference as far as that goes. It's just a handy, terrific tool. You can go check them out at newrelic.com, or if you want to go through the website, you can do that by going to teachmetocode.com/newrelic, and we'll get a little bit of credit for that. So thank you for doing that, and we'll go ahead and move on to the main segment of the show. So some people who may have been following me on Ruby Rogues or some of the other areas that I've been working in, or some of the other podcasts that I've been putting out, you may be aware that I have been, I made the switch to Vim from TextMate, and I've been using Vim exclusively for about a week, and it's really been just awesome, to be honest. Now, there are a few things that I've been doing that I want to share, and the first thing that I want to talk about is actually a concept from the Pragmatic Programmers, where they talk about knowing your text editor and why that's important. The reason that it's so important is that you basically want to be coding as fast as you can think. In other words, you don't want the bottleneck to be how fast you can move your fingers, how fast you can type, or anything like that. So honestly, if anything you can do to remove the barrier between you and your computer is something that you ought to be working on. So, for example, if you're a slow typist, that's something that you need to work on as a developer. It's interesting how many people I know who code can't type, who can't do basic touch typing even. And it's amazing to me how much of a speed up some of these folks get once they learn some of the basic touch typing concepts. And if you're really hung up on your ability to type, if that's what slows you down when you code, then you're doing yourself and your employer a disservice by making them basically wait on you to type it in. Whereas, if you're able to type, I think last time I was tested, I was typing a little over 90 words per minute. I haven't tested in a long time. But anyway, I type almost as fast as I think. Almost. Pretty close. And I've been constantly working on getting better. I think my major hang-up for a long time was the number keys, like reaching up and knowing where they were without looking. And so I had to fix that. You get used to the 10 key if you're typing a lot of numbers, things like that. Just find ways, find tricks to save yourself the effort. And that's one of the things that I really like about Vim. It's also one of the things that I really like about Emacs, and I'm not going to bash on Emacs because honestly I think it's a terrific tool. I used it for a few weeks when I was working for Public Engines. I was working with David Brady. He's an Emacs guru, and he kind of got me going. I developed quite a bit of muscle memory for it, but it never quite took, and I'm not sure why. Honestly, I think the text editor war is really just a matter of which one you can become accustomed to more effectively and more quickly. And Vim works for me. So anyway, knowing your text editor really allows you to move at the speed that you think. And that's the big deal, is that the programming happens in your head, not on the keyboard. It doesn't happen on the computer. It happens in your head. When you solve the problem, figure out what steps the computer needs to take in order for it to solve the problem. So that's the power of knowing and mastering your text editor. So when you're opening files, that's still something that I'm not perfect at, and usually it's because I have to think of where in the path, or what the path is to the file that I want to edit. I have found some tools that plug into Vim that allow you to do that. I've been using the Janus framework. You can find that on GitHub. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. But basically, I've been using that with MacVim, and MacVim does all. It's compiled to have the bindings that you need to do all the cool stuff with it. So anyway, you have the power in there to find files and stuff like that, and they have a fuzzy matching deal where you can Command T, and then it'll actually pull up a list of files. You start typing any of the letters in the path of the file, and it'll start narrowing down which files you're looking for. It does it in order, so if you type an A, and A is the last letter in the name of the file, and then you type a B, then it's going to eliminate the file with the A at the end. But anyway, really, really handy. Super, super. It just gets stuff out of your way. I don't have to worry about what the path is. I can just start typing the name of the file. Now, it's not perfect, but that's mainly because I still have to think about which file in the list I want and select it. But, it's a limitation that I have, and I think it's something that I need to get used to more than a problem with the tool itself. Because the only way for it to know more effectively what I want is for it to be able to just pull it out of my head. Anyway, so you have all of these things. The other thing that has really made a huge difference for me with Vim, and I think really makes a difference in general, is that a lot of times the general concept that you have in editing, such as replace everything from here to the end of the line, or replace everything in the parentheses, or things like that, they don't translate directly to a particular keystroke or set of keystrokes. So remove everything between here and the parentheses usually means go to the closing paren and backspace to the beginning paren. Well, that's a whole bunch of keystrokes. And that's one of the powerful things with Vim that I've really been enjoying, is that if you are at the beginning of the parentheses, if you're right after the open paren, then you can do something like CTD, or CT close paren, CT close paren, and what that does is it cuts everything up until, and that's what I think, anyway, my mind has equated T with till, which is the shortening of until. So cut until the closing paren, and when it cuts, it sets you in insert mode when it's done. So it takes everything out, puts you in insert mode, and then you can just type. So it replaces everything. And that's really one of the powerful things. So in 3 keystrokes, I can clean out what's between the parentheses, or I can do a Shift C, and it'll clear everything to the end of the line, put me in insert mode so that I can start typing. And there are so many tricks like this that are really just powerful things. Now, one thing that I've been doing is the same thing that you need to be doing in your coding and everything else, is you kind of need to flex your muscles and exercise your ability and find new tools, find new ways to do things. And so what I've been doing is I've actually been playing with Vim Golf. You can find that at vimgolf.com. And Vim Golf is actually really handy in the sense that it gives you a way of basically, let me back up. So Vim Golf, what you do is you install it through Ruby gems. So you just do a gem install Vim Golf, and then you do Vim Golf puts, and then each puzzle has a number associated with it. So you put the number in there, and what it does is it fires up kind of a vanilla Vim terminal, and that's just to level the playing field. So you can't use your little macros and stuff that you have typically in your Vim. So then you do whatever it is that the puzzle is. So you change the file from one thing to another, and then when you save and close it, what it does is it will compare the file contents to the contents that the puzzle wants, And if they match, then it'll take the number of keystrokes you made, and you can send that up to vimgolf.com, and it will list you in the listing for the puzzle. Now, I've only been doing one puzzle so far, and when I started, it took me, like 60 keystrokes to solve the thing, and I got it down to 40, which puts me within the top 50 or so people that have attempted the puzzle. And it's really just been educational, because what it does is then it allows you to see people up through like 20 people ahead of you. So you can get in there and you can look and you can say, okay, well, what is this guy doing? And so then what I'll do is I'll go in and I'll start duplicating some of the things that they're doing, and I'll learn a trick, and then I'll master it. And the nice thing is that as I master that trick, a lot of times there's another trick that I've picked up somewhere else that allows me to cut a keystroke or two out of what that person did. And so as I master these other keystrokes and master these tricks, I really can just get in there and own Vim. And I've come a long way in a short time, and it's really, really been handy. So then what happens is when I'm editing a file for somebody else, for example, one of my clients, I get some of these editing tricks, and I do a lot of them now without thinking. And so it's like, okay, I need to clear this out. So it's CT close paren, like I said before, and then I'm off and running, and I don't have to think about it. So anyway, there's some real power there. So you have the power in editing, you have the power in opening and closing files. You can switch between buffers. So if you have a file that's already open, you can just switch buffers and open it up. A lot of the text editors allow you to split windows, and I've been doing a lot of that when I'm working in a Rails view, which is more or less the HTML. Although I'm not using HTML, I'm using Haml, but Haml translates it to HTML. So you can think of it as the HTML layout, and then I'll split the view horizontally so that I have on the top half I'll have the view, and on the bottom half I'll have the CSS. And so then I can customize the CSS and be seeing HTML at the same time. And just things like that allow me to rapidly work and move back and forth between files. It really makes a difference when you're getting in and doing the dirty work and editing your files. I've also been able to do this in like Rails models and controllers when I need to know what a particular attribute or property of my object is. Just things like that. It really, really helps. I'm still figuring out some of the other powerful features that there are with Vim, but ultimately it's something that I like because it really it allows me to do all this stuff without moving my hands away from the keyboard or doing anything else that forces me to switch context. And even the minor context switch between the keyboard and the mouse is enough of a hiccup that it slows me down. And you wouldn't think that, but it really is the case. So whatever your text editor is, I highly recommend that you find ways of practicing and getting better. Even if you're using something that's more graphical like TextMate or something else, go buy the book, go work through some exercises, and just figure out how to own your text editor. I know this is kind of short, but I am going to definitely be wrapping this up a little bit early. I have an interview next week with Gary Bernhardt from DestroyAllSoftware.com, and we're going to be talking about a bunch of cool stuff with coding and things like that. I'm really looking forward to talking to him. He was referred to me by Corey Haynes, and so I just shout out there to Corey. He's really helped me make some contacts out there in the coding world, and find some people that are interesting to talk to. I'm also going to be trying to pull in more people from other areas that aren't strictly Ruby. So we'll see how that all goes. But thank you for listening. If you have a Ruby or Rails application that you need help with, feel free to contact me. You can email me at chuck@teachmetocode.com. You can call me 801-367-6164. I actually got a phone call yesterday from somebody who's been listening to this podcast. I forget his name, but he had a few questions about learning Ruby. Specifically, he wanted to know what my coaching rate is Currently, I've been scheduling 1 to 2 hour sessions, and I've been charging about $100 an hour for the coaching sessions. So if that's something you're interested in, feel free to call me, 801-367-6164. He wanted to learn just some Ruby stuff and wanted to know where to get some help. And, I was able to point him to a few places where he could get the information that he needed. And, if you have questions like that, you can always reach out to me by phone, by email, or you can find me on Skype. My Skype handle is Gigachuck, Gigachuck. And if you have any other questions or anything else, leave a comment on the blog, teachmetocode.com. You can also, like I said, reach me any of those ways or on Twitter at CMaxW, CMAXW. Thanks for listening. Get out there, build cool stuff, and remember that writing the code is the easy part.